I still remember the moment I held that perfect birthday cake in my hands, knowing I had spent 2 months working overtime just to afford Dylan's dream spaceship cake for his 11th birthday. As a single mom, every dollar mattered, but seeing my son's face light up was worth every extra shift. What I never imagined was that the person who would destroy everything would be my own flesh and blood. The sister I trusted, the family I believed would always have our backs. Before I tell you this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Please hit that like button and subscribe if this is your first time here. Trust me, you are going to want to follow along for what happened next, because what my grandmother did with that baseball bat will leave you speechless. Now let me take you back to that kitchen where it all began. 3 years had passed since my divorce, and I had built a quiet life for Dylan and me in our little apartment in Sacramento. Working as a dental assistant was not glamorous, but it paid the bills and gave me flexibility to be there for my son. Dylan was everything to me. At 11 years old, he was this bright, curious kid who loved everything about space and dreamed of becoming an astronaut someday. The previous year had been devastating for us. Dylan had spent his 10th birthday in the hospital with a ruptured appendix, missing his party entirely. I watched him try to be brave as nurses came and went, but I could see the disappointment in his eyes. That night, as he slept, hooked up to monitors, I made a promise that his 11th birthday would be absolutely perfect. For 8 weeks, I picked up every weekend shift available at the dental office. Dr. Peterson was understanding about my situation and let me work extra hours whenever possible. I skipped buying new clothes, ate ramen noodles for dinner more times than I care to admit, and put every spare penny into my Dylan's Dream Cake Fund. The goal was $180 for a custom 3-tier spaceship cake from Sweet Dreams Bakery. Dylan had discovered this bakery on Instagram 6 months earlier. The owner, Mrs. Chen, created these incredible sculptural cakes that looked like real spaceships, complete with working LED lights and intricate details. Dylan would show me pictures of her work constantly, his eyes wide with wonder. "Mom, look at this one. It has actual lights that blink like a real spaceship." I knew I had to make it happen for him. Planning the party consumed my evenings for weeks. I decorated our small living room with silver streamers, glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, and space-themed plates and cups. I invited 12 of Dylan's classmates, plus our immediate family. My sister Amanda had always been involved in Dylan's life, perhaps a bit too involved at times, but I appreciated that he had an aunt who cared about him. Amanda was 4 years older than me and had always been competitive. Growing up, everything was a contest with her. Who got better grades, who was more popular, who Dad loved more. Even at 32, she carried that same energy. She had focused on building her marketing career instead of having children, but she treated Dylan almost like he was her own son sometimes. It could be overwhelming, but I tried to see it as love. When I told her about the spaceship cake, something shifted in her demeanor. $180, Marina. Do not you think that is a bit much for an 11-year-old? Her tone had an edge to it that I chose to ignore. Kids need to learn that they cannot have everything they want. I brushed off her comment, attributing it to her not understanding what it meant to be a parent. But looking back, that was the first red flag I should have paid attention to. The morning of Dylan's birthday arrived, bright and sunny, perfect weather for our afternoon party. I picked up the cake at 10 a.m., and it was even more beautiful than I had imagined. 3 tiers shaped like a rocket ship with silver fondant that shimmered in the light and tiny LED stars that twinkled around the base. Dylan's jaw dropped when he saw it sitting on our kitchen counter. "Mom, it is exactly like the pictures. It is perfect." He wrapped his arms around my waist in the biggest hug. "Thank you so much. This is the best birthday ever, and we have not even started the party yet." My heart felt so full in that moment. All those extra shifts, all those nights eating instant noodles, it was worth it for this pure joy on my son's face. Amanda arrived at noon, 2 hours before the party was scheduled to start. She walked into our apartment with an expression I could not quite read. "Wow, Marina. You really went all out, did not you? She surveyed the decorations with what felt like judgment rather than admiration. I hope Dylan appreciates how much you sacrifice for him. Some kids do not understand how good they have it. I felt my stomach tighten, but I forced a smile. It is his birthday, Amanda. I wanted to make it special after what happened last year. She nodded, but there was something cold in her eyes that made me uncomfortable. I decided to focus on the final preparations instead of dwelling on her mood. My father arrived shortly after Amanda, carrying a wrapped present and wearing his usual reserved smile. Dad had always favored Amanda, something that became more pronounced after she graduated from college and started her successful marketing firm. In his eyes, Amanda could do no wrong. She was the responsible one, the successful one, while I was the one who had gotten divorced and was struggling as a single mom. "Hello, sweetheart," he said, giving me a brief hug before immediately gravitating toward Amanda. They began talking in low voices about some work project she was handling effectively, excluding me from the conversation. I tried not to let it bother me. Today was about Dylan, not about family dynamics. As guests started arriving, the energy in the apartment shifted to something lighter and more joyful. Dylan's friends were amazed by the decorations and kept asking when they would see the cake. Their excitement was infectious, and I felt myself relaxing for the first time all day. These kids understood what magic looked like. They appreciated the effort that had gone into making everything special. But Amanda seemed determined to maintain her critical stance. She made comments about the music being too loud, suggested that the games I had planned were too childish, and even criticized the pizza I had ordered. Domino's, really? There are so many better options, Marina. Each comment felt like a small cut, but I bit my tongue. I would not let her ruin Dylan's day. The tension came to a head when it was time to sing happy birthday and cut the cake. All the children gathered around as I carefully carried the magnificent spaceship cake to the dining table. Dylan's face was absolutely radiant. This was the moment I had worked so hard for, the moment that would make up for last year's missed celebration. That is when Amanda stepped forward with a smile that did not reach her eyes and said, "You know, Dylan, your mom has really spoiled you. I hope you understand that most kids do not get cakes like this. You should not expect this kind of treatment all the time." The room went quiet. Even the 11-year-olds could sense the awkwardness in her words. Dylan looked confused and hurt by his aunt's comment, but he tried to maintain his smile as I lit the 11 candles on his beautiful spaceship cake. The LED lights twinkled against the dimmed overhead lights, creating the magical effect we had both dreamed of. "Make a wish, sweetheart." I encouraged him, trying to push past Amanda's negativity and reclaim this special moment. As Dylan leaned forward to blow out his candles, his eyes closed in concentration as he made his birthday wish. Amanda suddenly stepped closer. "You know what would be really fun," she announced loudly, drawing everyone's attention. "A surprise cake smash. All the cool kids are doing it on social media." Before I could process what was happening, before I could step in to protect my son, Amanda placed her hands firmly on the back of Dylan's head and shoved his face down into the cake with shocking force. The beautiful spaceship that had cost me 2 months of overtime, that represented every sacrifice I had made for my child's happiness, crumbled under the impact. But it was not just the destroyed cake that made my blood run cold. It was Dylan's scream of pain that cut through the shocked silence of the room. The LED lights, which had been running for hours, had become hot. When Amanda forced his face into the cake, his left cheek pressed directly against one of the heated light fixtures embedded in the fondant. Dylan pulled back, tears streaming down his face, a red mark already forming on his cheek where the hot LED had burned his skin. Pieces of silver fondant and chocolate cake dripped from his hair and face, but all I could focus on was my son's pain and the smell of singed skin. "Surprise!" Amanda laughed nervously, apparently not registering the severity of what had just happened. "It was just a prank, Dylan. Do not be such a baby about it." Her words made my blood boil, but my first priority was getting to my son. The room had fallen completely silent except for Dylan's quiet sobs. His friends stood frozen, not knowing how to react to what they had just witnessed. Parents who had stayed for the party looked horrified. The beautiful celebration I had worked so hard to create had been destroyed in seconds by my own sister's cruel impulse. I rushed Dylan to the bathroom to assess the burn on his cheek. It was not severe enough to be life-threatening, but it was definitely a second-degree burn that needed medical attention. The skin was blistering and Dylan was in obvious pain. "Mom, why did Aunt Amanda do that? I was being good. I was not doing anything wrong." My heart shattered hearing the confusion in his voice. How do you explain to an 11-year-old that sometimes the people who are supposed to love us the most are the ones who hurt us? "You did nothing wrong, baby. Nothing at all. Aunt Amanda made a very bad choice, and we are going to take care of your cheek right now." The party ended abruptly as guests gathered their things and left offering awkward apologies and concerned looks. The beautiful spaceship cake lay in ruins on the dining table, a metaphor for how this entire day had collapsed. I packed ice in a clean towel for Dylan's cheek and grabbed my car keys. "Marina, you are overreacting," Amanda called out as I prepared to take Dylan to urgent care. "Kids get hurt at parties all the time. It was an accident." The casualness in her voice, the complete lack of remorse or understanding of what she had done, made me realize that my sister was not the person I thought she was. "An accident." I turned to face her, my voice shaking with rage. "You deliberately shoved my son's face into a cake with hot electronics in it. He has a burn on his face, Amanda. This was not an accident." Dad, who had been watching this entire scene unfold, finally spoke up. But instead of supporting me, instead of recognizing that his granddaughter had been hurt by his other daughter's actions, he sided with Amanda. "Marina, calm down. Amanda was just trying to add some fun to the party. These things happen. Boys need to learn to be tougher anyway." I stared at my father in disbelief. This man who had raised me, who I expected to protect his grandson, was defending the person who had just burned Dylan's face. The betrayal cut deeper than Amanda's actions because I had expected better from him. I had expected him to be a grandfather first and a father to his favored daughter second. "Get out," I said quietly, my voice steady despite the fury coursing through my veins. "Both of you get out of my apartment right now. And do not contact us until you are ready to apologize to Dylan and acknowledge what really happened here today." As I drove Dylan to urgent care, listening to his quiet sniffles from the back seat, I felt more alone than I had ever felt in my life. The two people who should have been my support system had not only failed to protect my son, but had actively harmed him and then dismissed that harm. I did not know how we were going to move forward from this, but I knew that everything in our family had changed forever. The urgent care doctor confirmed that Dylan had suffered a second-degree burn and prescribed antibiotic ointment, along with special bandages to prevent infection. Dylan was brave throughout the examination, but I could see the emotional trauma was deeper than the physical wound. "Mom, are we still going to have birthday parties? Will Aunt Amanda come to them?" The innocence in his questions broke my heart. That evening, after Dylan had fallen asleep, I sat alone in my living room staring at the remains of the spaceship cake still sitting on my dining table. The LED lights had finally died, and what remained looked like a crash site. It felt symbolic of more than just a ruined birthday party. It represented the crash of my relationship with my family. My phone rang around 9 p.m. It was Dad. "Marina, you need to call Amanda and apologize. She is very upset about how you treated her today. She was just trying to make the party more fun, and you embarrassed her in front of everyone." His words hit me like a physical blow. Even after having hours to reflect on what had happened, he still believed that I owed Amanda an apology. "Dad, your grandson has a bandage on his face because Amanda burned him. The doctor said it will likely leave a small scar. And you think I should apologize to her." I tried to keep my voice down so I would not wake Dylan, but the anger was building again. "It was an accident, Marina. Amanda feels terrible about it, but you made everything worse by overreacting. Family is supposed to forgive each other. You are being stubborn just like when you were a child. The familiar pattern of invalidation that had characterized my relationship with my father my entire life was happening again, but this time it involved my son. If Amanda feels so terrible, why has not she called to apologize herself? Why is not she the one checking on Dylan's injury? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Amanda never took responsibility for anything. Dad had spent 32 years enabling her behavior, and he was not going to stop now. She is scared to call because you were so hostile toward her. She asked me to mediate because she knows how emotional you get. The gaslighting was so familiar, so deeply ingrained in our family dynamics that for a moment I almost believed him. Maybe I had overreacted. Maybe I was being too emotional. But then I remembered Dylan's scream of pain, the smell of his burned skin, the confusion in his eyes as he asked why his aunt had hurt him. No amount of gaslighting could make me doubt what I had witnessed and what my son had experienced. I am hanging up now, Dad. When you are ready to acknowledge that Amanda hurt Dylan and that she owes him an apology, you can call back. Until then, we have nothing to discuss. I ended the call and turned off my phone, not wanting to deal with any more attempts to manipulate me into accepting unacceptable behavior. The next morning, I called the one person in our family who had always been a source of wisdom and strength, Grandma Rose. At 76 years old, she lived in a senior community in Henderson, Nevada, but her mind was sharp as ever, and her protective instincts toward her family were legendary. Grandma, I need to tell you what happened yesterday. I began, and then recounted the entire story. The silence on the other end of the phone grew heavier with each detail I shared. When I finished, I could hear her breathing slowly and deliberately. That girl has always been jealous of you, Marina, but this crosses a line that should never be crossed. And your father? Her voice trailed off heavy with disappointment. Sometimes people need to be reminded what family really means. You just focus on taking care of Dylan. Grandma is going to handle this situation. Grandma, what do you mean I do not want you to get involved in this mess? You should not have to deal with family drama at your age. But even as I spoke the words, I felt a sense of relief that someone finally understood the gravity of what had happened. Honey, I am 76 years old, not dead. And that little boy is my great-grandson. Nobody hurts my great-grandson and then gets defended for it. Your grandfather did not leave me his baseball bat collection just for decoration. The steel in her voice reminded me of stories she used to tell about growing up during the Great Depression, when people learned to stand up for themselves and protect what mattered. 2 hours later, Grandma Rose called me back. I am in my car heading your way. It is a 2-hour drive from Henderson to Sacramento, and I will be at your father's house by 5 p.m. Is Dylan feeling better today? Her matter-of-fact tone told me that she had already made up her mind about whatever she was planning. Grandma, what are you going to do? Please do not do anything that will get you in trouble. But part of me felt a fierce satisfaction knowing that someone was finally going to stand up for Dylan and me. For too long, I had accepted being the scapegoat in our family dynamics, always being told I was too sensitive or too emotional when I objected to mistreatment. Do not worry about me, sweetheart. I am just going to have a conversation with your father and sister about respect and family values. Sometimes people need a visual aid to help them understand important concepts. The chuckle in her voice told me that whatever she had planned, she was going to enjoy it. At exactly 5 p.m., my phone rang. It was Dad, and I had never heard him sound so shaken. Marina, you need to call off your grandmother. She is standing in my front yard with a baseball bat, and she says she is not leaving until Amanda and I come outside to talk to her. The neighbors are starting to stare. I felt a surge of love and gratitude for Grandma Rose that brought tears to my eyes. Dad, Grandma Rose is a grown woman who makes her own decisions. If she wants to have a conversation with you, maybe you should listen to what she has to say. She is threatening us with a weapon. Dad's voice was panicked in a way I had never heard before. "This is insane, Marina. You cannot send an old lady to intimidate us." "I did not send her anywhere. And she is not threatening you with a weapon. She is holding a baseball bat while requesting a conversation." There is a difference. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had the upper hand in a conversation with my father. What happened next was something I wish I could have witnessed in person. According to neighbors who called me later, Grandma Rose stood in Dad's front yard holding Grandpa's old Louisville Slugger and called out in a voice that carried down the entire block, "Tom Wilson and Amanda Wilson, you have 60 seconds to come out here and face me like adults, or I am going to start demonstrating my batting practice on your fence posts." Dad and Amanda eventually emerged from the house, both looking terrified of this small, elderly woman holding a baseball bat. Grandma Rose did not actually hit anyone, but she did swing that bat at one of Dad's fence posts to demonstrate that she was serious about the conversation they were about to have. "Now," she announced loud enough for the gathering neighbors to hear, "we are going to talk about what it means to be family. We are going to talk about protecting children instead of hurting them. And we are going to talk about taking responsibility for our actions instead of blaming the victims." For 20 minutes, Grandma Rose lectured my father and sister about family values, respect for children, and the importance of accountability. Every time Amanda tried to interrupt or make excuses, Grandma Rose would gesture with the baseball bat, and Amanda would fall silent again. "That little boy is your grandson and your nephew," she concluded, pointing the bat at each of them in turn. "He did nothing wrong, and he deserves an apology from both of you. Marina is a good mother who is trying to give her son a special birthday, and instead of supporting her, you betrayed her. If you cannot understand why that is wrong, then you do not understand what family means." By 6:30 p.m., both Dad and Amanda were calling me with tearful apologies. Amanda's call was especially difficult to listen to because I could tell she was apologizing out of fear of Grandma Rose rather than genuine remorse. But it was a start. The healing process for Dylan and me was gradual and complicated. His burn healed within 2 weeks, leaving only a small, barely noticeable scar on his cheek. But the emotional healing took much longer. Dylan struggled with feelings of confusion about why his aunt had hurt him, and I struggled with rebuilding my sense of family and belonging. I made the difficult decision to limit our contact with Amanda to major family events only, and even then, I never left Dylan alone with her. Dad and I rebuilt our relationship slowly, with him gradually acknowledging that he had failed as a grandfather that day, and promising to do better in the future. The most positive change came from joining a support group for single mothers at Dylan's school. I met women who understood the challenges of protecting your children while maintaining family relationships. I found friendships based on mutual support rather than competition and obligation. When Dylan turned 12 the following year, I organized a small party with just his closest friends and Grandma Rose, who had driven up from Nevada specifically for the celebration. This time, there were no family politics, no criticism, no drama. Just pure joy as Dylan blew out the candles on his simple chocolate cake and made his wish. "Mom," Dylan said to me that evening as I tucked him into bed, "this was the best birthday party ever. It felt safe and happy." His words confirmed that I had made the right choice in prioritizing his well-being over family expectations. I learned that protecting your child sometimes means disappointing other adults, even family members. I learned that true family members are those who stand up for what is right, not necessarily those who share your blood. Most importantly, I learned that sometimes it takes a 76-year-old woman with a baseball bat to remind people what love and protection really look like. Dylan is now 13 years old, and he still remembers the lesson from that devastating birthday party. He knows that no one has the right to treat him poorly, and he knows that there are people in his life who will fight for him when he needs them. That might be the most valuable birthday gift he has ever received, even though it came wrapped in pain and disappointment. Grandma Rose still keeps that baseball bat by her front door, and Dylan visits her every summer. She has told him stories about his great-grandfather who owned that bat, and about the importance of standing up for people you love. I believe those stories will serve him well throughout his life. What lessons have you learned about setting boundaries with family members? Have you ever had to choose between keeping peace and protecting your children? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and please like this video if my story resonated with you. Do not forget to subscribe for more real-life stories about family relationships and finding strength in difficult times. And if you know someone who might benefit from hearing this story, please share it with them. Thank you for listening to my story and for being part of this community where we support each other through life's challenges. I hope your own family relationships are filled with genuine love, respect, and protection for those who need it most.